Arguably, the biggest panel at Comic-Con this year was the Lucasfilm, that is the Star Wars panel hosted by Chris Hardwick, which in fact, apart from bringing out the entire cast and some important members of the crew, it also showcased a sizzle reel of behind-the-scenes footage, and as I do believe, what really adds to the experience of Star Wars, especially now, are the behind-the-scenes and the special features and whatnot that you get on the DVD. So it's really good to see and get an insight into a franchise that we already love and the next step that they're going to be undertaking. So first off, Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams came on, that is the producer and the director, and of course, they spoke about how the fans are integral to building the momentum of the film and the Star Wars film itself, how they're fine-tuning their cut, how they do have a finished full-length cut, but it's not the final cut, of course, and there are some minor edits that still need to be made, and of course how they, went through a very selective process trying to find the best cast and crew. And then they brought on an alien called Baba Joe that has a minor role in this film, but it has 5 operators. It wiggled its nose on stage to really show 2 things. First off, the key attention to detail that they are paying in this film, and at the same time, the essence of practicality, which tends to appeal to a lot of the Star Wars fans. Following this, the 3 main cast of this film, that is Star Wars Force Awakens, were John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, and Oscar Isaac, who came on stage. They spoke for a bit. I think the biggest highlight was them actually talking about the physical demands of the film, shooting in scorching heat, and some explosions being real and everything. There's a lot of training that they in fact had to go through. And then for the first time, we actually saw the darker side of this film come about. That is Adam Driver, who plays Kylo Ren, Domhnall Gleeson, who plays General Hux, and Gwendolyn Christie, who Captain Phasma. I was going to see them original Luke. So people were of course expecting Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill to be there. Harrison Ford, people weren't so sure about. However, when he did show up, there was a massive standing ovation. And to summarize, all they really said was they were happy to be back, but it still really just meant a lot and added a great sense of flavor and excitement and enjoyment to that Hall H panel that hosted over 6,000. Now, the sizzle reel itself has a lot of interesting little things. I liked how it was shown, of course, just showing us certain environments and everything that feel, well, Star Wars-ish, whether it's a desert, my mistake, a desert planet, whether it's the inside of a spaceship, whether it's R2-D2, just minor things here and there before the shots actually begin. A really interesting looking alien here or there, but the first thing that really stood out to me was the crashed TIE fighter. Now, this crashed TIE fighter that partially burning on this planet, I think can really help you connect some dots. So first off, I think that John Boyega's character would be in this TIE fighter, and of course it would be, I feel like the film might open with a particular scene of John Boyega up in space and stuff like that, and on a Star Destroyer. He leaves on a starfighter, and ultimately there's some kind of battle that ensues, because in an earlier trailer we saw a Star Destroyer on the planet of Jakku, presumably the desert planet of Jakku, and similarly I feel like this TIE fighter got messed up, if you will, during the same attack, and I feel like John Boyega's character might just be in this one. Moving on, we get a brief look at the Falcon, some of the concept art from the film itself, and then Mark Hamill begins to talk about how everything's changed but nothing's changed. And that's really interesting. It's been 30 years since the original films that he was a part of, but everything has changed in terms of the fact that they're going forward with a new story. They're a lot older. It's a different trilogy, a different saga within this saga. And at the same time, I feel like what he means by nothing's changed is more so the emotion that they're trying to put across with Star Wars, that general sense of excitement, and that is something I'm really happy about. The technology has evolved with the use of the film, and furthermore, there was this one interesting shot that panned from behind the scenes leftward to Oscar Isaac being, say, hostage, if you will, by a stormtrooper, and this shot, this particular shot of him walking, even down to the detail of his hair, feels right to me. It's something I don't normally say, but it feels right in the sense that it feels like it's within the universe and not necessarily copying it, but it's borrowing ideas from it. It feels like it can exist in this universe, in a story, 30 years post what we've seen so far, And I guess that's what they're doing, and I guess that's why this shot feels really... This shot in particular got me more on board for the rest of the sizzle reel. We also get to see a brief moment of Lupita Nyong'o with the motion capture suit on. We still don't know who she's playing just as yet. And then we get a good look at, you know, the fact that they're shooting on film, some of the sets on the planet Jakku, but mostly a capture of the first day of their shooting, and about how J.J. Abrams is just, you know, talking to everyone about how it's crazy that they're actually there doing Star Wars. And followed by that, we get to see an explosion that they probably presumably did on the first day of the shoot itself. Yes, there is some green screen, and I know people are going to flip out about that, but frankly, films like this, they require it, and it's fine. Trust me, that's the one thing. Going practical is good, but do not freak out about it. I feel a lot of people presume CGI is just a bad thing. CGI has done wonders in the past. A good combination of practicality and CGI, I think, is what they're going for. So there isn't much of a need to worry. We also then get a look at Simon Pegg, who is on set, who just says it's a dream come true for him. This is what his entire life has led to, apparently. And I feel like, as we do get to see later, he's donning some kind of alien suit, so he will have a cameo, but a cameo that's not necessarily noticeable, much like, say, Nathan Fillion in Guardians of the Galaxy. And that's the right kind of cameo to have. I feel like if you were to show his face, it may get too distracting away from the film itself. Furthermore, moving on, we get to look at Chewbacca, and there's Peter Mayhew, of course, with his Chewbacca suit, but without the mask, and, you know, he does a bit of a growl. It feels good. There is an essence of nostalgia there that they're playing on. But what I really like about when they show the Millennium Falcon, in the insides of it especially, is that you're getting a mix of the old and the new characters. You see Chewbacca sitting next to Daisy Ridley for a moment. Even later on, you get to see Han Solo sitting next to Daisy Ridley. And moments like that really do add to the fact that there's a little bit of the old and a little bit of the new. And I feel like, you know, it gave me a good vibe. This sizzle reel as a whole just gave me a really good vibe. Like I said, there's also a lot of people... They're just so committed to the fact that this is Star Wars, they want to do their best and bring their A game. Even this particular woman who is in the Gonk Droid suit, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, all she says is she wants to nail this character. The simplest thing of a walk is what she has to do. She's going to be inside a box, but at the same time, you know, that kind of commitment, that kind of excitement about Star Wars is something that gets me very excited as well. Well, we do get a look at some interesting ship and character designs as it goes on. There's one thing in particular that I loved, that I absolutely loved, is the way they were shooting the Millennium Falcon. I feel like they built this massive rig on a stage, and I think there's an IMAX camera inside that Millennium Falcon, and they're moving it around to make the characters feel like they're a part of it, say in Pacific Rim, where they actually move that hub around where the characters operate the Jaegers from, and just stuff like that. That's one example, but I really like the way that it might immerse the actors themselves into what's going on, and this is that one rumored scene that is being shot in IMAX. Of course, then we get to see some big action scenes being shot with regards to stormtroopers just flying away and being blown up and everything. You get a look at Domhnall Gleeson about him just being happy, and you get a look at that alien as well that was sitting with Lando Calrissian in that is the end of Star Wars Episode 5. In fact, Star Wars Episode 6 as well. And so yeah, there's going to be a few gentle nods here and there. Minor moments of nostalgia once again played too. You get to see Carrie Fisher talking to J.J. Abrams and them sort of, you know, having a moment in terms of just being, say, on board and happy with what they're doing. And once again, the final shot of the inside, in fact, of the Millennium Falcon. A very apt shot, in my personal opinion, to have at the end of this. Now, what I really want to say about this is, of course, while I feel like I might have summarized most of the important things that were shown, it gave me the idea that this film, especially, they're not just settling for, hey, you know, we have a big franchise name, we're going to just put this out. I feel like this film in particular, among, say, the future Star Wars films, has the potential to be something that is beyond incredible. And I don't mean that just because I'm a fan of the franchise, but I feel like as a film, I think they're not going to settle for anything less than 100%. That's the vibe I got, and I'm very happy about that. Finally, at the Q&A that was undertaken, there were a few things that we got to listen to. Abrams talking about the burden of the legacy that they really have to face. They don't want to just show the Millennium Falcon and say, hey, here you go. They really want to still use those elements and make a good story out of it. They still have to make it good. They can't just show, say, Han Solo and be like, oh, hey, that's Han Solo, and that's that. They have to make it good, you know? And that's something I like, that they're not just relying or, you know, taking a backseat because Star Wars is such a big franchise, but they still want to do well with it. In fact, the anthology film, the first anthology film, which I'm not as excited about, but that's a different story for a different video, starts shooting in 3 weeks. So it's pretty much in advance. It's good. I mean, these Star Wars films are shooting at times. There's a lot of post-production involved with regards to visual effects and everything. So we find out shooting in 3 weeks. I'm sure there will be some set photos leaked and more information leaked about that in the coming weeks and months. There was an interesting story of how Harrison Ford thought Oscar Isaac was wearing a wig on set the first time he met him, which was pretty interesting. Another really cool thing that was brought up, that was in fact slipped or spoiled, if you will, out of the mouth of Domhnall Gleeson. We haven't seen him interview as much, so I feel like this might not be the best thing. I feel like there could be more slips in the future. But he spoke that the First Order base, which is technically the new Empire, is called the First Order, is called the Starkiller base. And that's interesting. That means something, because Luke Skywalker was supposed to originally be Luke Starkiller, so it's kind of an ode to that. At the same time, it does have kind of an, say, more villainous name than the Resistance or the Rebels name. So I feel like calling it the Starkiller base, you know, as an ode is something, it's fine. It's cool. I think the name just works more in this case than, say, Luke Starkiller. It's a minor detail that was slipped. I just felt the need to address it. They also brought up the fact that Luke and Leia were brother and sister. They joked about it for a bit. And, you know, they've kind of come to grips that, yeah, Luke might have almost fallen in love with his sister. But they've just sort of, you know, they're used to it. It's not something they feel the need to address all that often. And finally, Harrison Ford pretty much ended it by just saying he never thought there'd be another Star Wars film. But most of all, he's happy to be back. Needless to say, I cannot wait for this December for Star Wars The Force Awakens.